Picture this, luscious, red tomatoes, grown by your own hands. A perfect scene, right? But what if, seemingly overnight, you notice the leaves starting to yellow and strange spots appearing on the fruit? Panic sets in. Your precious harvest is in danger. But don't despair just yet. Most problems can be fixed if you spot the warning signs in time. Today we're going to cover 5 key signals your tomato plants send when they need help. And I promise, you'll not only learn to recognize them, but also know exactly what steps to take to save your crop. So why do tomatoes seem to get sick so often? The answer is quite simple. By nature, they are quite delicate plants. Originally from much warmer climates, our climate often presents a constant stress for them. And that stress weakens their defenses, making them easy targets for diseases and pests. Okay, let's start our diagnosis. The first and most common sign is leaf spots. So you walk up to your beloved tomato plants and notice something isn't quite right on the lower leaves. Little dots, specks, spots. Don't just ignore it, thinking it will go away on its own. This is the first and most crucial warning sign. These spots can look very different. They might be small and yellow, or large and brown with fuzzy edges. They could be dry, almost like they've been burned by the sun, or the opposite, wet and greasy looking. Often they have a dark border which seems to highlight the issue. So what exactly are these spots? 9 times out of 10, they're caused by fungi. The most common culprits are septoria leaf spot and tomato leaf mold, also known as cladosporium. Septoria typically shows up as small, round spots with a light centre and a dark border. Tomato leaf mold, or brown spot, appears as yellowish spots on the top side of the leaf. And if you peek underneath, you'll often see a velvety, olive-brown growth. So why do they appear? It's quite simple. Fungi absolutely love moisture and poor air circulation, cold nights with heavy dew, a rainy summer, or plants crowded too closely together in a greenhouse. These are perfect conditions for them to thrive and spread. Ignoring these spots essentially gives the disease free rein to take over your entire harvest. Next up is the second, no less tricky sign, curled leaves. This looks very distinctive. The leaves, especially towards the tops of the plants, begin to deform. They might curl upwards, cupping inwards, or conversely, bend downwards at the edges, looking like claws. Sometimes they simply become crinkled or distorted. It's important not to panic right away. Sometimes this is just a physiological reaction. For example, if it's very hot and sunny during the day, the plant might curl its leaves to reduce moisture loss. Usually things return to normal by the evening or after watering. This isn't a disease, but if the leaves are constantly curled, even in cloudy weather, it's time to be concerned. Inspect the underside of one of these leaves, preferably with a magnifying glass. You can often find tiny pests there. Aphids, whiteflies, or spider mites suck the sap from the plant, causing the leaves to deform and curl. The worst-case scenario is a virus. For example, the leaf curl virus. In this case, the leaves become not just curled, but are also stiff and brittle. Unfortunately, viral diseases of tomatoes cannot be cured. If you're certain it's a virus, it's best to remove the affected plant from the garden bed as quickly as possible to prevent it from infecting neighbouring plants. The third red flag that spells trouble for your future tomato harvest is the appearance of dark, sunken spots right on the fruit itself. Picture this disheartening sight. You're eagerly awaiting your first ripe tomato. It's grown large, it's green, just about to start turning red. And suddenly, on its bottom end, where the flower used to be, a small, watery spot appears. Within a couple of days it darkens, turning black, dry and sunken, almost as if the fruit has been poked or dented. This is what we call blossom end rot. There are a lot of myths surrounding this issue. Some people mistakenly believe it's a fungus or infection and start drenching their plants with fungicides. But that's a big mistake. Blossom end rot isn't a disease in the classic sense. It's a physiological disorder. Simply put, it's the plant's SOS signal, crying out, "I'm not getting enough calcium." Calcium is a crucial building block for cell walls. When calcium is deficient, the cells at the far end of the fruit, away from the stem, simply break down. But why would your plant be short on calcium, even if there's plenty in the soil? The most common reason is inconsistent watering, switching between bone-dry conditions and being waterlogged. Under these conditions, the roots simply can't absorb nutrients properly, including calcium. So if you spot blossom end rot, the very first thing to do is sort out your watering schedule. Only then should you even think about adding calcium supplements. A fourth easily recognisable sign is a white powdery coating. It's a very distinctive look. Leaves and sometimes stems look like they've been lightly dusted with flour or starch. Initially, you might see isolated small patches that you can even rub off with your finger. But don't be fooled, it's not just dust. This is classic powdery mildew, a very nasty and persistent fungal disease. If left untreated, this coating quickly spreads, covering the entire leaf in a solid white layer. Beneath this layer, the leaf can't breathe or absorb sunlight for photosynthesis. It yellows, dries up, and eventually dies. The plant weakens, and fruits stop developing and lose flavour. What causes it? Powdery mildew thrives in sharp fluctuations in temperature and humidity. For instance, cold, damp nights followed by warm, dry days. Poor air circulation, especially in greenhouses, is another major factor. Another risk factor is excessive nitrogen fertilisation, which makes leaves overly tender and vulnerable. So if you spot even a small white patch, you need to act quickly. That powdery coating contains millions of spores, ready to spread throughout your garden. And finally, the fifth sign, the most general, but just as concerning. Your plant has simply stopped growing or is starting to wilt without any obvious reason. This is the scenario where you feel like you're doing everything right. You water regularly, the soil isn't dry, yet the leaves are still drooping like limp rags. It's especially noticeable on hot afternoons. You might think it must be the heat and water it again, but the next day the situation is the same or even worse. The plant looks unhappy, no new leaves are forming, and buds or blossoms are falling off. It seems completely stuck. This is the most alarming signal of all because it points to problems where we can't easily look. Beneath the surface, the cause is most often related to the roots. The first possibility is root rot. This is often caused by overwatering, especially in heavy, poorly draining soil. The roots essentially suffocate without air and begin to decay. They become dark and soft and stop being able to take up water and nutrients. So the plant above ground wilts from lack of water, even though its roots are sitting in saturated soil. The second possibility is underground pests. Things like grubs, mole crickets, or wireworms can be feeding on the roots. The plant loses valuable root mass and once again is unable to get the water and nutrients it needs. If you see your plant struggling but can't find any spots or pests on the foliage, gently dig it up and examine the roots. There's a good chance the problem lies there. But here's the key takeaway, the one thing that connects all these issues. And this is probably the most important point in the entire video. Do you think you need to remember the names of dozens of chemicals and complicated diseases? Not at all. Here's the twist. Saving your harvest starts not with treatment, but with simple daily inspection. A gardener's biggest enemy is wasted time. Most fungal diseases can be stopped in the early stages with simple and safe remedies. For example, spraying with a baking soda solution or whey. Blossom end rot can be prevented by ensuring proper and regular watering and by using calcium-based fertilizers. And curled leaves often mean it's time to simply examine the plant more closely for aphids. The key is to act immediately at the very first symptom. Don't wait until the whole plant or the entire bed gets sick. So, being an attentive gardener is already half the battle. Inspect your tomatoes, pay attention to any changes, and don't be afraid to act. Your harvest is in your hands. Thanks for watching this video until the end. If you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new tips. Now, a question for you. Write in the comments what tomato diseases you've encountered and how you managed to deal with them. Your experience can be very helpful to others.